Good afternoon. Good afternoon, friends in North Castle and all of Westchester. I'm State Senator Shelley Mayer, representing the 37th Senate District. Is our sound good? Okay, good. I'm thrilled to be here in the town of North Castle with so many of my colleagues in government and from civic activities to announce this very exciting donation, shall we say, or contribution of state funds that will help us move ahead in state funding for the town to purchase a parcel for this Mount Misery site, which we are going to explain. So I'm here with my colleagues in government, Assemblymember Chris Burdick. He and I have got this funding together. Town Supervisor Mike Shalero, Deputy Town Supervisor and Councilmember Barb Di Giacinto, Councilmember Jose Berra, many other people, Nora Manueli, who brought this project to our attention. Who did I leave out? I'm getting there. Tom Rice, Connie Kehoe. I have many, many names here. Did I mention, and I will mention, Ed Woodyard, president of the Miller House, Tom Rice, I think I mentioned, Libby Del Greco, Friends of the Miller House, Jose Berra. Does anyone else that I was supposed to mention that I did not? We're here to announce $175,000 in state funding for the town to purchase a parcel up here to be Mount Misery. And this is an extraordinary historical site that, frankly, unless you lived in this neighborhood or you're an expert in history, you probably did not know was one of the most important sites in Westchester during the Revolutionary War. So I serve as chair of the Senate Education Committee and sponsor of the 250th Commemoration Act, which we celebrated earlier this year with Senator Harcum at Verplank's Point, and will allow the state of New York to begin preparing for the semi-quincentennial commemoration of the Revolutionary War. We want people to know about these extraordinary Revolutionary War sites that are right in our own backyard. And so we have this town-owned parcel, 16 Nethermont, which will be protected by the town, and a privately owned parcel, which will be purchased by the town with the funding we've prepared at 18 Nethermont. And together, these two parcels will provide public access and a commemoration of this extraordinary historical site, which our history experts will describe to us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague in government and my colleague in this partner in this project, Assemblymember Chris Burdick.
Thank you very much, Shelley. And, what an extraordinary moment. And it really shows a number of things. What a community can achieve, and when government working right is delivering for the community. And I want to take this back to those terrific Zoom meetings. They were Zoom meetings that Barbara Di Giacinto had put together. And that's with the good folks of North White Plains, because that's where this began. This began with Nora Manueli. And let's give a round of applause to Nora. And there were a lot of people along the way too. But Nora was the one who had the history in her family going back for generations. And she is the one who had the foresight. She is the one with the tenacity and the perseverance and the temerity to raise it. Not once, but several times in those wonderful meetings that we had through the pandemic on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. And Barbara, a real shout out to you for making that possible and recognizing the importance of North White Plains to all of us in government. So from that, it was Nora who educated us on the historic importance of this parcel, where Revolutionary War soldiers in the Battle of White Plains took refuge right over here. And you know, the other thing about it is that there are so few open spaces left in North White Plains. And what a gem this becomes. How it fits into the history of this area. And so it began. It began. And then I spoke with Barbara. Then I spoke to Shelley. I spoke to Mike. How do we cobble this together? And we spoke to George. And we said, you know what? We have to do this. There's no question. We have to get this done. And then the town board said, yup, we're going to backstop this. We're going to make sure this happens. And we know that we have to be out there. And we have to take a little bit of a risk. And they did it too. And so they're the ones, and I learned just recently that as soon as the permissive referendum period expires, they're going to close title on this. And we are moving this through in record speed in the state of New York for this capital grant funding. And I cannot tell you how thrilled I am about this. This is an extraordinary event, an extraordinary coming together of community and government, and it shows what absolutely can be done. So many thanks to you and the community. Keep pushing. We're going to get this done, and this is going to be just a gem for not just North Castle, North White Plains, but Westchester County. Thank you.
Thank you. So nice. Chris really conveyed the passion of this project, and credit to him and to Barbara and to Nora, who really was relentless, and to her credit, and it educated us also on the history. So with that, let me turn it over to the town supervisor, Michael Shalero, because this was truly a multi-player partnership to make this happen. And so thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Senator. It was a team effort, but and I'm going to be brief. Every year in Byram Hills, they do something called the Power of One Day. And I teach a class on composting, nothing to do with this. But the whole concept of the day is to show students and adults that one person can make a difference. And then you have Nora. And this is a textbook example. No, but it really is. Because, yeah, there were other people involved. But you spearheaded it. You were relentless. And you didn't just come in with nefarious information. You said, here's the history, here's why this is important, we got to work to protect this. And you worked hard to get everybody on board. So maybe it might have happened, maybe it wouldn't, but you made it happen. And we all are in eternal gratitude for you to making this happen. And it was teamwork. From the county to our state representatives, and I'm telling you lightning speed, because we certainly have plenty of examples where things take a long time in the state. But we're fortunate with great partners. From the state level, from the county level, our county legislator, Margaret Kunzio, has been an advocate of preserving space in this town, especially historical, for a long time. And not only with support, but with money. And then also with the town board. Unanimously, the town board worked all together to make this happen. And I can't help but just make one comment about the Miller House, because that was an example of something that should have been easy and was a challenge and was a bit of a struggle. But we had Margaret advocating for ourselves, and then when George took over as county executive, not only did he make it happen, he made it better than we even thought it was ever going to be. So we can never thank you enough for that. But the appreciation for the history in this town, and a lot of it sits right here in the hamlet of North White Plains. And we're so fortunate that we can preserve it and have it forever. So thank you to all of our partners, but thank you to you, Nora, for really making the catalyst to make this happen. We can't thank you enough. Thank you, and thank you for letting me say a few words.
And as Chris described, Councilwoman Barbara DiGiacinto, throughout COVID, we had this regular, was it monthly? Monthly meetings, 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings, and many of us were there. And Nora kept raising this issue and insisting we could find a way. And credit to Barbara for her relentless advocacy in making this project happen and in bringing all the players together. So I'll turn it over to you, Barbara.
It is my pleasure to be standing in front of Mount Misery, and I was thinking this morning, without Nora and County Executive George Latimer, Supervisor Shalero and the entire Town of North Castle Board, as well as, of course, Senator Shelley Mayer and Assemblyman Chris Burdick, what could behind me would be a building lot where right now would be excavated, and we would lose this really important historical space. I cannot thank Nora enough for how hard she fought to make today happen. And North White Plains has a real jewel and an advocate that if she were receiving a salary, it would definitely be in the 6 digits because she is just incredible. Again, special thanks to Senator Shelley Mayer, to Assemblyman Chris Burdick, and to County Executive George Latimer. All three embraced this. There was no talking them into, there was no pleading. They understood it and they wanted to see it happen. So North Castle is really very, very fortunate to have such good friends in Albany and in the county, including, of course, our Representative Margaret Cunzio. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. George and then Jose, is that right? So County Executive George Latimer was another partner in this multi-partner effort.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much, all. I am at the Miller House grand opening that we had in October 2019, I think it was. And Margaret Cunzio, your county legislator, grabs me by the arm and she says, "Now I want to talk about Mount Misery." This is while we're celebrating the $3 million fixing of the Miller House, which did include money from the state government through your former Assemblyman David Buchwald. Now, when she said Mount Misery, I thought she was talking about the 9th floor, where we have the executive branch of government. And I know those in the state government talk about the 2nd floor with the same loving way that legislators talk about the 9th floor. But and I want to highlight Margaret. I know Ralph Esposito is here because Margaret has been an outstanding advocate. And keep in mind, we're in different political parties. She's the minority leader in the other party, the county legislature. But when she comes with ideas that make sense, we listen to them and we try to act on them. And then, of course, I went to one of those Saturday meetings by Zoom at that point, and Barbara, is advocating. And if there is an element of the story here to note, it is the story that Nora and Tom and other advocates can break through and accomplish something here. Saving the Miller House, fixing the Reuben Wright statue, which was a joint county-town project. That was the agitation of people who said this could be better. You could fix it, and we could do it. Ed, and suggesting that we redo the way we have the wall at the 9/11 First Responders Monument down on Kensico Dam Plaza. An individual with an idea, it breaks through if we wanted to. So in this story, this simple story of protecting a piece of land that has an historic basis, we see what government could be. It could be citizens alone changing the direction. It can be people working bipartisan together. It can be people at different levels of the government. Rather than throwing each other under the bus, oh, well, that's the state's problem. No, the county did that. It's the town. You work together and you accomplish something. Final comment I want to make. We're looking at a piece of land behind me. We're looking at it from the 21st century eyes. We see homes up and down the street. It's a beautiful setting to live, no doubt. You have vistas and so forth. I try to imagine that Connie Kehoe, who's a wonderful advocate for us to think in terms of our history countywide. We talked about trying to look at this the way the patriots of that day looked at it, when there were no houses and no paved roads, and they were walking up the side of a mountain, and they were in the middle of a war. It reminded me of what I felt when I went to Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. And I'm sure we've all seen Gettysburg at some point in time. And you think in terms of the site, you're watching a peaceful, placid field where tens of thousands of people died, sacrificed their lives during the Civil War. And then you remember the words of Lincoln. And Lincoln said, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate,
we cannot hallow this piece of ground. What these people did before, their sacrifice, hallows it more than our ability to add or detract. And the same that applies in the Civil War applies from the Revolutionary era. Men whose names we don't even know hallowed this ground. So it falls to Shelley and Chris and Mike and Barbara and Jose and the advocacy of other individuals and Margaret and George to say we recognize that accomplishment and we save that land for the future. That's what's being done today, and you should all take a tremendous bow and gratitude from all of us. And the county's put in 50,000. Just so you know.
Thank you, George. That beautifully said.
Speech is nice. How much money, George?
Yeah. So Councilman Jose Berra, and as the supervisor said, this was a unanimous vote to buy the adjoining parcel, and so we're extremely grateful that all these pieces came together. So, Jose.
Thank you, Shelley, and everybody else who has participated in this. We've all heard the cast of characters. Shelley, for your grant. Chris, George, the money and the support is crucial. All my town board members. Nora, absolutely, incredibly. I was going to add a couple of people who haven't been mentioned that much. So there are a lot of people working behind the scenes too. This is really a group effort. Tom Rice was involved with the sellers, helped to get that conversation really advancing in a good way. So that's really important. Ed, you're involved with the committee for, I'm not going to try to pronounce the word, 250th anniversary of the revolution.
Better than me.
Semi-quincentennial. Semi-quincentennial.
I'm going to hire you to say it.
Now say it 10 times fast.
Yeah, one time fast. So Ed,
Yeah.
key in all this.
Yeah.
The 250th anniversary is coming up. This is instrumental to the town. We have sites throughout the town, and I think part of the effort is to tie them together and get people to realize the importance of all this. And also to be mentioned, aside from all the people I'm not mentioning already specifically, for which I apologize, all the residents.
Yes.
It's your money that's paying for this, and we really appreciate it and your support, and hopefully you'll sponsor this. I always, recently I always hark back to the importance of independence. We see what's going on in Ukraine. The operation and the views of some lunatics in Russia, not to take aim at Russia overall, but for instance Putin. And Ukraine is fighting for their liberty. Their fight is really important. It should remind us how crucial it is and how fortunate we are. And working together, as George was emphasizing, is really important. Sometimes things can get contentious when people feel strongly about things. Different factors enter into it, but it's really important to work together for the common good of the town and the community. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. So Nora, would you like to say something, or are you deferring to Tom? You would like to say something. Yes, good. Yay!
Well, I have to say thank you. When I think of being, the little girl that grew up on Mount Misery, first of all, I didn't think it would be built on, this area behind me. So after getting over that shock, and then as an adult walking through here, I'm just flabbergasted. I am so thankful to Chris, to Shelley, to my town. Working with Barbara has been wonderful. Working with Tom, working with everyone, I thank you. I look forward to sharing the history with you. I'm working with Cindy Abbott Kaufman, who also grew up on Mount Misery. She couldn't be here today, but we have some plans, so you're all on notice that more will be coming, and it'll be educational and pull in the neighbors. It's very important for the community, far and wide, to participate in history and keeping it forward in our minds. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that was so nice. I'm so glad you spoke. So Tom Rice, who's also was here when we came and had our preliminary visit, and as was explained, dealt with the property owner and was very much behind the scenes in making this happen. Thank you so much. Come safe. talk a little bit, and then Connie can talk about that.
All right, so very briefly, as you can tell by my attire, I didn't plan to speak, but when Nora asks you to do something, as we all know, you just don't say no to that. I want to make 2 points. I've not really had a lot of dealings with our local government, or our state government for that matter, but I have to say this process has really impressed me as a citizen and as a resident of this state, this county, and this town, with the kind of leadership, dedication, and can-do attitude of kind of our public servants, as well as kind of the way they worked well with the private sector, not just with Nora, but with Connie, who brings so much experience as to how sites like this not only get preserved, but ultimately become accessible. So I wanted to say thank you to all of them, for all of their efforts and leadership in that regard. The other thing to say is I look forward, as Nora was alluding to the next phase, right? We've preserved this space now, but the next step is to make it accessible. I'm so happy to hear we have $50,000 to start with, which is fantastic. I hope we're recording all this, which is great. But it's but I do think that process, right, of number one, making this a place where people can learn about Mount Misery and its relationship to Miller Hill and the Miller House and the whole Battle of White Plains, that's a process that will take some time. I know that this group will work together to kind of do it right. And I'm hopeful at the end that this will really be something that, for generations, many generations, right, people will come to have a better understanding of our area's involvement in the war for independence. So thank you very much to all of you.
So our closer is truly the expert on our history and the role of Westchester in the Revolutionary War process, which is unbelievably rich. And Connie Kehoe is the Revolutionary Westchester 250th president. I've worked very closely with her on the bill to establish a commission. She's working closely with the county to make sure that we promote all the sites in Westchester during the 250th anniversary. And we have a history and tradition worth celebrating. So, Connie.
Thank you so much, Senator. I echo all that I have heard you all say so far, including my admiration for the citizen advocate that Nora exemplifies. The word you're all struggling to say, George did well, is the 7 syllables, semi-quincentennial. So that's 2026. And that is the year where we hope, with all these local partners here in this community, in Hastings, in Tuckahoe, in Tarrytown, we have partners across the county who want to, as Senator Mayer mentioned, bring to public awareness the importance of this county in the state and, frankly, in the whole country. So Mount Misery, there was one guy who wrote about his experiences up there, and he described, Joseph Plum Martin wrote about being up there right after the main battle of the Battle of White Plains at Chatterton Hill, and described how freezing it was, how soldiers were dying of dysentery and wounds. They had no blankets. They didn't know if there was going to be another attack or if this was the strategic retreat that it turned out to be. And he described the misery. So I think it's very well named, although that might have been a native name that came earlier. It's an amazing place, and it fits in the context of an important battle that also doesn't get the attention it should, which is the Battle of White Plains. So, yeah, we know there's Boston. Yeah, we know there's Philadelphia. But when we talk about heritage tourists and the economic development that it brings, this is a place we have to tell the whole country to come to Westchester, get the context. And this is going to be an important place to help tell the Battle of White Plains. So thanks, really, for the partnership. We can't do anything without what you do without what the state does and without the county does. So we will continue to be advocates. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, we have a check. Don't we have a check? Chris?
We do.
Yay! Don't take it to the bank.
Now,
but-
this isn't all of it.
No.
There's another 50 coming out of the county. And,
Yeah, I brought it
you
in
know,
cash.